An ancient legend tells of a miraculous well that is located at the bottom of the Kinneret Lake in the north of the land of Israel. In the Babylonian Talmud, Rabbi Yossi ben Rabbi Yehuda says, 3 good breadwinners stood for Israel. These are Moses, Aaron, and Miriam. And 3 good gifts were given by them, and these are a well and a pillar of cloud and mun. A well was given thanks to Miriam, a pillar of cloud thanks to Aaron, and mun thanks to Moses. The mun was a miraculous bread of the Israelites. They ate from it as they wandered through the desert. The pillar of cloud they received thanks to Aaron guided them along the way, whereas Miriam's well always made sure to quench their thirst with pure and clear water. But the story of our well begins even before the Exodus event. It begins with the creation story. In Tractate Avot, it is said about the story of creation that 10 things were created on the Sabbath eve. Among them was the well. This well appears several times throughout the book of Genesis. For example, in the story of Hagar and the Lahai Roi well, Hagar runs away to the desert, away from Sarah, and finds water in a well that miraculously appears. Also later on, in the first meeting between Jacob and Rachel, our well appears again when Jacob falls in love with Rachel and kisses her very close to the well. According to our sages, this is the same well. In the book of Exodus, it is the first time our magical well is attributed to one human figure who actually causes it to appear. Our Miriam, the prophetess, Moses and Aaron's sister. Let's go back for a moment to the story of the Exodus. After exile and slavery for more than 400 years, the God of Israel inflicts 10 plagues on the Egyptians. Then the Israelites, 600,000 people, go out into the desert at night. Grandparents, parents, and children, and all fall into a loop of walking year after year for 40 years. The obvious and most basic question is, where did they get their water from? Although in the Torah it is written that from time to time they met several springs in the desert, as for example in the story of Elima, where the 12 springs awaited them, or in the story of Mara's water, in which Moses made the water sweet and possible to drink. But most of the time they walked on dry land, an unsown land as the prophet Jeremiah called it, with the sun beating down on their heads almost all hours of the day. But they didn't walk alone. They had Moses, Aaron, and Miriam, 3 leaders, each of whom was in charge of his own department. Moses was in charge of the Torah and its teachings. The man bread given as a gift to Israel, thanks to him, is a metaphor for the laws of the Torah Moses received at Sinai. Aaron was in charge of the priesthood and the ongoing work of the priests in the tabernacle, where the Holy Ark was placed. Whereas Miriam, she was in charge of the people's faith, the spirit of the Israelites. The water she provided is compared to the spirit that restores the soul. The Maharal of Prague, a leading rabbi from the 16th century, also wrote about her in his book Netzach Yisrael, that Miriam's special role was to express the yearning and special connection of the people of Israel to their God. Miriam was the eldest sister among the 3 brothers. After her came Aaron and then Moses. Even as a child growing up to slave parents in idolatrous and elitist Egypt, she showed wisdom, independent thinking, and personal responsibility. She is the one who saved Moses from Pharaoh's decree that ordered every Hebrew male to be killed on the day he was born. Thanks to her, he was placed in the ark on the Nile while she watches over him from afar. And thanks to her initiative, he grew up in Pharaoh's house as an Egyptian prince. Even as a child, Miriam was considered a prophetess. In the Babylonian Talmud, in Tractate Sota, it is written that Miriam prophesied that her mother would give birth to a son who would save Israel. Indeed, later on, Moses was born and led Israel in its exodus from Egypt. And now, let's go back to the well. According to the legend, from the moment the people of Israel left slavery to freedom, Miriam's well accompanied them on their journey through the desert. It miraculously appeared where they parked, and fresh and clear water came out of it. Not only that, but according to the legend, everyone who drank from the water was blessed with perfect health and gained extra wisdom. According to Rabbi Eliyahu's book, The Consciousness, it is said that the waters of the well rose and surrounded the entire camp of the Israelites. Miraculously, trees bearing fruits and edible plants grew from these waters. In the book of Numbers in the Torah, there is a song that the Israelites sang about the well. Come up, O water spring, let us make a song to it. The fountain made by the chiefs, made deep by the great ones of the people, with the lawgiver's rod and with their sticks. According to Rashi, the great commentator of the Bible, the song actually describes the miracle of Miriam's well, how it was given as a gift to the people of Israel, and what happened to it, which we will talk about later. After the death of Miriam during the wanderings in the desert, the well dried out. According to the Babylonian Talmud, it was only thanks to Moses and Aaron that the well returned to provide water to the people of Israel and continued to accompany them until they entered their Holy Land. As for Miriam, according to old tradition, she was buried not far from her brother Aaron, who also died in the desert. It is assumed that their graves are not far from Petra, the Nabatean archaeological site that is today in the territory of the state of Jordan. Even according to the tradition of the Bedouins, the inhabitants of the place, Moses struck the rock to get water out of it at the same site Miriam was buried. However, according to a later tradition, Miriam was buried in Tiberias on a mountain ridge overlooking the Sea of Galilee. And according to the Jerusalem Talmud, her well was hidden in the Sea of Galilee, and until this day she watches her well from far. This is the belief that exists to this day, that somewhere at the bottom of the Sea of Galilee, the Kinneret Lake, as the locals call it, miraculous water comes out of the well, and until this day it can miraculously heal anyone who drinks from it, and a spirit of wisdom becomes part of his soul. Rabbi Chaim Vital, for example, a great Kabbalist from the holy city of Safed, describes in his book The Incarnations how his father took him sailing in the Sea of Galilee, filled a glass with water from the lake, and watered him while telling him that he was actually drinking from Miriam's well. And from then on I began to enter into this wisdom, he wrote. In Midrash Tanhuma, an ancient Jewish book of legends, it is told about boils and leprosy patients, and even a blind man who drank from Miriam's well and were completely healed. Some even link between the legend of the well to the coming of the Messiah and the vision of the end of times. In the chapters of Rabbi Eliezer, another ancient Jewish book of legends, it is written that the water of the well will rise at that day and water the whole land, and every field and vineyard will bear fruit, and when its water will flow into the Dead Sea, it will heal and become sweet, and every sick person that will bathe in those waters will heal as well. To this day, there are those who believe the story of Miriam's well is true. Some are even looking for it. There is even a record of Rabbi Kadori, a great Torah scholar, who knew how to point out its place in the Kinneret Lake. In fact, the city of Tiberias' old residents, a city that is located on the Sea of Galilee shore, know the story very well. Even the veteran fishermen of the lake know where they are not allowed to sail or fish. They also know there is an endless pit in the lake's bottom and that it is an underground spring. They also say that when you try to dive where the well is located, the currents throw the diver out. One can ask, is there anyone who ever managed to dive into the well, to this endless pit at the bottom of the lake? You have to believe with all your heart that this well really exists in order to do such a thing, don't you?